Hello, everyone. Welcome to our CME Palooza 10th year anniversary interview series that we are calling 10 Years in 10 Minutes, or 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, but we'll try to keep it as close to 10 minutes as we can. And we're spending 10 minutes or so with some of the people who presented at the very first CME Palooza, discussing their experience with the first CME Palooza, their topic, how their topic has changed over the past 10 years, and maybe what they've been up to over these past 10 years as well. So today I'm joined by my friend and former colleague, Beth Brillinger. Beth, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, hello, Beth Brillinger. I am currently not working anywhere. It's actually been a nice, what I'll call sabbatical. But my past experience is varied, and I really feel very fortunate about that. I have been able to wear a few different hats in our CME CPD profession. I've been both on the provider side as well as industry side, the commercial supporter side, I'll say, using old vernacular. But I've also worked on academic side as well as for-profit medical education companies. So I love that I can kind of approach a different process or scenario with a lot of those different experiences behind me. And yeah, Derek, I think we worked together in 2000, the year
Correct.
2000,
Yeah.
at Jefferson Medical College. So I consider you a friend for all of those 24 years. And I'm just so happy that you asked me to join you today. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I have forgiven you after leaving me in the lurch for we worked together 6 months, and then you were off to
Oh, is
greener
that what I
pastures.
did? Did I do that?
Was that me? No.
Interesting perspective, right?
It
But I
all
did.
worked
You're
out for
right.
the
I
best.
did. I did. It was definitely greener pastures and better each iteration. Let me tell you.
That's right. That's right. All right, excellent. And thank you for agreeing to be part of this. So the title of your presentation for the first CME Palooza was Activity Planning, Improving the Process to Align with Accreditation Criteria. And you clocked in at a crisp 16 minutes on your presentation. Nicely done. Can you just tell us a little more about the topic? Is it still relevant today? Has much changed over the intervening years? That sort of thing.
Yeah. So the first thing that struck me about what has changed in the last 10 years is that when I first did this on CME Palooza, yeah, I didn't know what CME Palooza was. I've since
Mhm.
learned how to spell it correctly and which letters are
Good.
capitalized, and that's good.
Mhm.
But the cool thing for me was that I had been very used to presenting to a live audience. I'd presented at the Alliance annual meetings. Remember the CBI conferences and the AMA
Sure.
task force? I had presented at those things. And usually well, I'll say my favorite thing to present about was a process. And this particular topic in and of itself of a planning document as your baseline process for that systematic planning that CME requires is just one of my favorite things. And so here I was presenting to no one. I couldn't see my audience. I had,
Mhm.
interestingly enough, I looked it up. I had relatively recently presented at the Alliance meeting the same topic for about an hour to a room full of maybe 200 people. And as I recall, you were there.
I was.
And it was a really well received presentation. I got into some extreme detail about some of the accreditation criteria, and then to give this presentation on CME Palooza for 15 minutes. Whoa, I can't even believe that it was only 15 minutes. I really,
Mhm.
I really whipped right through that. But it was a great experience for me. I felt like there was a really strong need for people to understand
Sure.
this process. And as I've moved along through the different roles that I've had since then in the last 10 years, it all comes back to that initial planning process for everything that a CME provider would do. Because if you're someone that's seeking support, that planning document is the baseline for your proposal, which is also the baseline for your outcomes report. And it is just that circular process that we all learn about. Once you've completed an activity, you have additional information to develop a new planning document for a new set of activities based on what you learned from the last one. So that was how it was sort of the first thought that came to my mind about how it was a little unusual and different and how it's changed over time.
Yeah. So the topic itself, accreditation criteria. I know we both went and rewatched the session again. Did anything jump out to you about as far as what you were presenting on then versus how it is now? Have you kept up with all the changes that have happened with the accreditation criteria? Is it or something that you just like forget it? Since you had a new role, I don't even need to worry about this anymore.
Great question. Because ironically enough, from the time that I had presented that planning document presentation at the Alliance meeting to the time that I worked on this presentation for CME Palooza 10 years ago, the ACCME changed the criteria. So I had to update my slide deck to reflect the changes. 10 years later, guess what? They've changed it again. If there's one constant we can always rely on in our industry, it's change, right? So I am well aware that the ACCME has updated its criteria. Now, when I was on the provider side, prior to taking my last job, which I worked with you at Pfizer, and that was for 6 years. But prior to that, I was definitely up to date on whatever the newest, latest, greatest criteria were and expectations from the ACCME. But even now, I'm starting to look back at what some of those requirements are currently, because it's always been very interesting to me, and I'm no longer at a commercial supporter at the moment. So I attended the Alliance meeting this past February in New Orleans and saw many of my friends, but I attended a couple of sessions on joint accreditation, which is a relatively new thing for me to learn about because I was not in the place where I would be part of any of that process as an industry person. And watching some of the presentations that I saw about really amazing academic institutions going through the process of getting their joint accreditation, I was really amazed to see even one group that I just love were basically like, yeah, we missed a step along the way initially because we didn't have a good way of identifying which of these activities were interprofessional, which would have been applicable to joint accreditation. And I was thinking to myself, planning document. This is what needs to be in the planning document. We need to identify which activities would be interprofessional to identify which ones would apply for which would be relevant to joint accreditation. So yeah, that's some of my first observations about things that have changed along the lines of my presentation since I gave it 10 years ago, but also since I had been away from that process for the last 6 years when I was in industry.
Yeah, I was pretty struck by that too. I mean, rewatching it similar to you, before working at Pfizer and being on the provider side, I was involved in several reaccreditations, and listening to you talk about the criterion and all that gave me some unpleasant flashbacks to that was part of my
that's so funny because that's what I love. I love that stuff.
Well, and that's what I thought too. That while the content itself maybe is not so out of date now from at that point, but I think the format of the presentation and just sort of the useful information that you were giving would be super useful now. I can tell people, here's my little plug for CME Palooza's spring coming up, is that we are going to have at least one of the sessions, the wait, do tell me session, will have some information about the new accreditation criteria. Nice. I don't even know if we're calling it new accreditation criteria anymore.
Well, I'll be watching that one because it's interesting to me. And I will also tell you that, okay, so I was part of the first CME Palooza, but I did another one sometime later. I can't remember when. And I was sort of involved in one as far as to helping to develop, but I remember watching those presentations, and then I would often have the opportunity to chat with somebody who was new to CME and new to what this whole world was like. and they would ask me questions, and I love to mentor people with bits of information. But oftentimes I would send them to your CME Palooza archives to tell them to, this was a really good presentation that you can learn something from. This is something that you'll be able to connect with what you're asking me about. Check it out. Go see
Yeah.
Derek's CME Palooza archives.
Thank you. We hear that a good amount from people. So I mean, it's nice to know that something you've done has been useful.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
So we are at our 10-minute mark. So I'm going to move into our curveball question.
Oh boy. Okay.
To give you with it. So here it is. Who is your favorite Formula One driver and why? Oh yeah, look at this. Think. I thought you would have that at the top of your tongue.
Okay. Are we talking current
Tip of
era?
your tongue.
Current era? Right now?
You can do however you want to. I'll let you interpret it as you feel. You're the Formula One expert, not me.
All right. I don't know if you know this. I think you do. I'm going to have the chance to go to the Monaco Grand Prix this May.
Yes.
I'm super excited about it. And the shirt that I chose to take along, I'm already freaking thinking about what to pack, is Ayrton Senna.
Okay. I have
Now,
no idea who that is.
He was one of the best Formula One drivers ever. And I would mostly say because of his passion and his risk taking. However, he tragically passed in a.
Was there a documentary or a movie about him?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I do remember that. Now that you're saying that, okay.
Yep. And so, and you know my husband Jack very well, and Ayrton Senna was also Jack's childhood hero, so that definitely has influenced me as well. So there you go.
There you go. Great. That's a very good answer, as I figured it would be. Okay, so excellent. Excuse me. That's going to do it for this edition of 10 Years in 12 Minutes, we will say. Thank you, Beth, for your time today.
You're very welcome. Thanks for the opportunity.
Watching. Sure. Do remember that CME Palooza Spring is coming up on April 24th. So mark that in your calendars if you haven't already. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.